Good afternoon, and thank you for joining Organization Iranian American Community's congressional briefing today. My name is Ramesh Separad, and I am with OIAC's advisory board. I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleague, Mrs. Shekufis Sharif from California at the beginning of our program as we bring you this very important event. Today, we are very excited to announce the outcome of a strong bipartisan voice of U.S. House of Representatives, House Resolution 374, supported by majority from 41 states and all of 27 congressional committees, including over 113 chairmen, ranking members, and committees and ranking members of committees and subcommittees. We are very delighted that many members of Congress are scheduled to speak at our event today, despite the extraordinary situation we're in. Over the last several months, members and leaders of the Iranian American communities have worked with their representatives to bring us to this point. I'm actually told by my colleague that we are close to 1,000 community members from all chapters from West Coast all the way to the East Coast who have joined us so far online. We welcome all of you and we thank you for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a first time in the history of US-Iran relations where Congress is not only holding the regime of mullahs accountable, but also both parties are coming together to offer specific measures and solution for a free Iran in a meaningful way. Let's start with a short clip about this resolution.
House Resolution 374 was sponsored and submitted by Republican Congressman Tom McClintock of California and lead Democrat Congressman Brad Sherman of California in the 116th United States Congress. The resolution had 39 bipartisan original co-sponsors, and that support has since grown to over 220 co-sponsors. That is a majority of the House. The resolution is titled Condemning Iranian State-Sponsored Terrorism and Expressing Support for the Iranian People's Desire for a Democratic, Secular, and Non-Nuclear Republic of Iran. Here are some of the key highlights from the resolution. On July 2nd, 2018, the Belgian Federal Prosecutor's Office announced it had foiled a terrorist plot against the Free Iran 2018 gathering held on June 30th of 2018 in support of the Iranian people's struggle for freedom. The Iranian diplomat associated had been charged in Belgium in connection with this Paris terror plot and in Germany with activity as a foreign agent and conspiracy to commit murder.
The Free Iran gathering had commenced to show support for the Iranian opposition leader, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan for the future of Iran, which calls for the universal right to vote, free elections, and a market economy, and advocates gender, religious, and ethnic equality, a foreign policy based on peaceful coexistence, and a non-nuclear Iran. Asadollah Assadi, a senior Iranian diplomat based in the Iranian embassy in Vienna, Austria, was arrested in Germany in connection with the planned terror plot in Paris. The United States government arrested 2 Iranian nationals in August 2018 who had acted on behalf of the MOIS to conduct covert surveillance in the United States against officials of the National Council of Resistance of Iran for a target package, which, according to the Department of Justice federal complaint, may include apprehension, recruitment, cyber exploitation, or capture-kill operations. Also in December 2018, the government of Albania expelled Iran's ambassador, Gholam Hossein Mohammadnia, and MOIS station chief in Albania, Mustafa Rudaki, for planning terrorist activities against Iranian dissidents and members of the People's Mujahideen of Iran.
The Iranian people have been deprived of their fundamental freedoms, for which they rejected monarchic dictatorship and are opposing religious tyranny. This resolution urges the United States government to condemn past and present Iranian state-sponsored terrorist attacks against U.S. citizens and officials, as well as Iranian dissidents, including the Iranian regime's terror plot against the Free Iran 2018 gathering in Paris. This resolution also calls on nations to prevent the malign activities of the Iranian regime's diplomatic missions with the goal of closing them down, including the Iranian embassy in Albania.
As we saw in the clip, the House initiative enjoys the support of bipartisan majority, among them key members of House Committees of Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, Homeland Security, Appropriations, Select Committee on Intelligence. This resolution started with 39 bipartisan original co-sponsors and now has the support of 221 sponsors. For the Iranian American communities, this is a moment of reflection and how they have echoed the voice of the people of Iran here in US Congress. At this point, let me turn to my colleague, Shekufe Sharif in California, who's joining us from Los Angeles. Shekufe, are you with us?
Yes, Ramesh, it's great to be with you today from California. And let me just say what a great privilege it is to introduce our first speaker, our first member of Congress, Congressman Tom McClintock of California, who is the main sponsor of this resolution. Congressman McClintock, we thank you so much for joining us today, and we thank you for your leadership and your support for this historic effort and initiative on Iran. Those of us in California are especially proud to have you to support us in this initiative. Let me ask the control room to show a short clip of your introduction, and then we will turn the floor to you, sir. Thank you.
Congressman, we're with you. If you could unmute, we're ready for your remarks.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for everything that you're doing in the cause of freedom. It's a great pleasure to join you today. You know, there's a reason why a strong bipartisan majority in the United States House of Representatives has come together to co-sponsor this resolution condemning Iran's terrorist acts. It's because the world is watching the struggle for freedom in Iran, and it is cheering for your cause. We've seen the Iranian people taking to the streets and the airwaves year after year, demanding liberty and justice that is the right of every human being. We hear you. The ruling regime has denied the people of Iran these rights, and by doing so, it has lost any claim to legitimacy. Iran is one of the oldest and greatest civilizations in history, but it has been suppressed and plundered by a clique of theocratic thugs that compromise the illegitimate government of Iran. In past eras, the Iranian people have known the happiness and prosperity that freedom makes possible, and they are now seeking to reclaim it. As the mullahs have become more oppressive and extreme, the international resistance to them has become stronger and more resolute. The more the story of Iran is told, of its proud ancient heritage of freedom and civilization, and of its current curse of despotism and terror, the more the world has rallied to your cause. It's becoming obvious that Iran's rulers are beginning to fear your resistance. During the massive opposition protests in late 2018, authorities shut down the internet for more than a week in order to suppress information about the protests and related state violence. When silencing protesters wasn't enough for them, they killed them in the streets. Recently, as the global pandemic took a devastating toll on the Iranian people, the regime rejected humanitarian assistance from the United States and sought to convince the world that sanctions were the cause of the coronavirus wave sweeping the country. This, despite the fact that the regime has spent over $16 billion since 2012 to fund its terror proxies abroad, while Iranian healthcare services remain critically underfunded. Of course, the Iranian people are no strangers to the lies of the despotic rulers, as graffiti in a Tehran suburb read, "The Islamic Republic in Iran is the real coronavirus." The most prominent hashtags coming from Iran these days are hashtag Khomeini virus and hashtag Islamic Republic virus. Despite domestic and international acknowledgement of Iran's opposition, the regime has remained intent on provocation and destabilization. They attack foreign oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz and continue using embassies as fronts to plot terrorism. But after the killing of General Soleimani, who was responsible for an incalculable number of killings, the regime has been placed on notice that their acts of international terrorism will be countered with force. Nonetheless, it remains clear that the regime is willing to crush its economy and kill its own people for the sake of nuclear aspirations and spreading terror, further jeopardizing the safety of the Iranian people and threatening the peace of the world. Joined now by 221 members of the House of Representatives, I've introduced House Joint Resolution 374 that offers solutions for the future of Iran. It is the first time that the House has offered a comprehensive solution to counter the Iranian threat. That solution relies on the Iranian people, not military actions. The initiative is strongly supported by both parties and involves representatives from 41 states and 12 committees, including the House Committees on Foreign Relations, Armed Services, Homeland Security, Appropriations, and the Select Committee on Intelligence. This resolution was brought to the attention of Secretary Pompeo this week with the names of 221 co-sponsors as a policy suggestion that the administration should consider. It comes at a time when the Iranian opposition to the regime, the National Council of Resistance for Iran, is steadily gaining momentum and has thus become the main target of the regime's global terrorism. Dozens of the Iranian regime's so-called diplomats, as well as its agents, have been expelled or jailed by the European nations, including Belgium, France, Albania, as well as the United States, for their terrorist plots, particularly against NCRI officials. The Iranian resistance remains as the main target of repression in Iran. Many of its supporters have reportedly been arrested in Iran for their affiliation with this movement. Last November, the regime murdered at least 1,500 innocent Iranians protesting its cover-ups, mismanagement, and corruption. The International Atomic Energy Agency has found the Iranian regime has violated its international agreements on nuclear weapons. The cruise missiles used in several attacks on oil facilities and an international airport in Saudi Arabia last year were of Iranian origin. With the UN arms embargo due to expire in October, this resolution offers an effective path for the United States to take in dealing with the Iranian regime. Now, while progress has been made, one resolution by one chamber of government is not enough to achieve true change. That will require treating the Iranian dictatorship as the international pariah that it is. And it will require providing every ounce of moral and material support that the Iranian opposition needs to rid their nation of this fascist Islamic dictatorship, to restore the proud heritage of Persia, and to restore its rightful place among the civilized nations of the world. That so many members of Congress has come together to condemn these terrorist acts and express in no uncertain terms our support for the Iranian people's fight for freedom is a testament to the effectiveness and resiliency of the opposition movement. And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce Madam Maryam Rajavi, the President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, and to wish all of you Godspeed in your historic and vital work.
Freedom-loving Iranians, honorable lawmakers, greetings to you all for taking part in the conference in support of the Iranian people's struggle for freedom and democracy, and for holding the religious dictatorship ruling Iran to account. The regime in Tehran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world today. First of all, I would like to thank Representatives Tom McClintock and Brad Sherman for their pivotal role in proposing Resolution 374. This resolution, co-sponsored by a bipartisan majority of members of Congress, reflects the American people's support for Iranian people's desire for a free Iran, a republic based on people's free vote, separation of religion and state, gender equality, respect for the rights of ethnic groups, and a non-nuclear Iran. Our struggle is not for taking power, but to realize the Iranian people's desires. The Iranian people have struggled against two dictatorships and for freedom. They overthrew the Shah and will continue their struggle to overthrow the mullah's regime and achieve freedom. They are encouraged that this resolution supports one of their goals for a republic based on the separation of religion and the state. The Iranian people will be inspired to know that the representatives of the American people hear their voice. Let it be known that the people of Iran are more determined than ever to continue the struggle for freedom. They have paid a heavy price by offering 120,000 martyrs. We want the people of Iran to freely choose their own destiny. During the protests in November 2019 and January 2020, the people of Iran demonstrated their determination to change the regime. The Iranian people and resistance have shown that the mullah's suppression and crimes failed to put out the flames of freedom in Iran and cannot do so in the future. Today, our nation, Iran, is at a critical moment in history. The regime's regional strategy has hit a dead end. Corruption is widespread. The Iranian people realize that the suffering and poverty they face is because the mullahs have plundered our nation's wealth. The criminal mullahs have no way out of the crisis of overthrow. Facing such major crises, Khamenei and Rouhani tried to use the coronavirus to overshadow the public's outrage as well as their regional and international failures. They wanted to overshadow the November 2019 uprising with its 1,500 martyrs. While governments and lawmakers across the world are standing with their people against the pandemic, in Iran, the regime is united with the virus against the people of Iran. For this reason, the regime did not allocate the minimum budgets needed to cope with the pandemic. While the Iranian people were under tremendous pressure, the regime used the country's financial resources to fund their proxies in the region. These actions have caused the deaths of nearly 53,000 of our compatriots, deaths which could have been avoided. I'm delighted that a majority of lawmakers have condemned the terrorist activities of the mullah's regime through its so-called diplomatic missions and terrorist diplomats. The Iranian resistance commends their calls to hold the mullahs accountable and to adopt decisive measures such as the closure of the regime's centers of espionage and terror in Europe, including in Albania. The people of Iran are encouraged to see that the lawmakers have expressed support for their right to rise up against a repressive and corrupt regime. Now, the time has come to stop the activities of the regime's agents and entities in the US under whatever pretext. The Iranian resistance has always persisted on the need to reimpose the 6 UN Security Council resolutions and the international arms embargo against the clerical regime in Iran. After more than 40 years of carnage, suppression, poverty, and terrorism under the mullah's rule, it is truly admirable that the elected representatives of the people of America are standing with the people of Iran and their struggle for a free Iran. And it reflects the solidarity of American people with the people of Iran. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Have it, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful remarks by Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. We are very, very honored and pleased to have her join us in this event. And before we move on with our program, I am reminded of the comments by Congressman McClintock as he explained how resilient the National Council of Resistance of Iran has been, and obviously fighting against the despotic regime of Iran. And as Maryam Rajavi said, it is time to reimpose all the UN Security Council resolution sanctions on the Iranian regime. With that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our next member of Congress, Congressman Paul Gosar, who has been one of the original co-sponsors of the current resolution. And we are very pleased to have Congressman Gosar with us. At this point, I'm going to turn the control over to the control room. You have a short video clip for the introduction of Congressman Gosar, and after that, we would turn to him to unmute and begin his remarks. Control room. Congressman Gosar, I think we're not ready for you yet. Just give us a moment if you don't mind muting.
Okay.
Looks like I'm going.
My apologies. It seems like Congressman Gooden, you're going next. I do apologize for the mix-up with our control room. But before we go, Congressman Gooden, I am reminded of your visit to Albania, where you visited H.Res.3, and we are very, very pleased that to have you with us today. Looking forward to your remarks. I'm going to turn it over to the control room if they have the video of Congressman Gooden, and let's go ahead and get started.
Sorry, Paul.
This is Congressman Brad Sherman. I've spent the last 10, 15 minutes trying to log in to the video, and it simply does not work.
Hello, Congressman Sherman. I am sorry you're having technical difficulty. I'm going to, if you don't mind standing by, I'm going to have my colleague contact you to resolve the technical difficulty.
No. Look, I've got a very tight, I've got a very tight schedule. If you want me to appear by audio, I can do that right now. I can't spend the next half hour doing what I've spent the last 15 minutes doing, which is trying to deal with the technology. You want the audio, you've got it. You don't want the audio, I got to go and do something else. This is a crazy day for me.
I understand. No, we totally understand. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We will take your audio any moment. Let me just take a moment. We do have my colleague from California who wanted to say special hello and introduce you to the event. If you bear with us for 2 minutes, I'll have Shekupe introduce you and we'll cut over to you for audio.
I'll just.
Hello,
Brad Sherman here.
Sherman, it is our great pleasure to introduce Congressman Sherman from the beautiful city of Sherman Oaks, the city with a wonderful name. And without further ado, we will hand it over to you since you are in a rush, sir. We would like to show a short video if you have the time. If not, we can go ahead and get started.
Why don't you show the... So
No
we'll
problem.
just have to make do with, so showing the video with me out, not able to see it, you might as well do that after the after my presentation.
No problem.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman from, as you point out, California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. For over 23 years, I've served on the Foreign Affairs Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, where I've made it a priority to fight for human rights in Iran, introducing the first sanctions bill in 1998. And that was the first time I did it. Obviously, others had been involved in prior decades. And I've been advocating for a non-nuclear, democratic, secular, free, and prosperous Iran. It's an honor to join you once again, as I've joined you and similar groups again and again, as we fight for democracy and human rights in Iran. While the regime has continued to fuel extremism across the region, every day Iranians have stood up to the regime, especially the recent proposed fuel price hikes and fuel rationing, and have said enough. And they've done that at great risk to themselves and their families. Iranians have come out to the streets to protest the regime, and in return, the regime has cut off the internet and blamed foreign governments for attempting to sabotage the regime. Now, I'm not a real fan of the regime, but the people in the streets, they're reacting to what they see. They're reacting to what this regime has put them through for decades. They're not reacting to what some guy from California is saying. And they are there screaming, enough is enough. But America should and does stand in solidarity with brave Iranians fighting for this new chapter in Iran's great and multi-millennial history. None of us know what will happen to these protests, but each person who marched on the streets should know that the American people are with them. We stand with the Iranian people. We stand with them as they face down a regime that cares nothing for its own people's freedom or prosperity. In May of last year, I joined with my colleagues, and I was the lead Democrat in introducing H.Res.374, a resolution that supports the rights of the Iranian people to free expression and condemns the Iranian regime for its crackdown on legitimate protests. Now more than ever, after thousands of people have been killed since the start of these protests in 2019, and just in November of 2019, scarcely 6 months ago, we stand with the people of Iran who are continuing to hold legitimate protests against an oppressive and corrupt regime. We now have 219 bipartisan co-sponsors of our resolution. That is a majority of the House of Representatives. Iran's violent crackdown on the protests speaks volumes about the regime in Tehran. It employs violence and espionage against its own people, both at home and abroad. A prosperous Iran would be a peaceful Iran, where the Iranian people's freedoms and human rights are restored. We must work towards a secular, non-nuclear, democratic, and prosperous Iran. These goals will come together because the Iranian people have shown ingenuity and hard work and capacity, decade after decade, century after century. So if we can end the corruption that this regime has created, if we can end the oppression which stifles economic progress, and if Iran can be restored to free commerce among all nations, prosperity will return to Iran, and Iran will be more prosperous than it has been in modern times. Most notably, Iran must be prevented from buying and selling weapons. In May, I joined 387 of my colleagues in sending a letter to the Trump administration, urging them to spare no effort in seeking to extend the United Nations arms embargo on Iran, which is set to expire in October of this year. The letter encourages robust diplomacy to prevent the expiration of the embargo. And clearly, the Iranian people need food. The Iranian people need medicine. They do not need their government spending the money on arms, which they would use to oppress those very Iranian people. So we must continue the UN arms embargo and continue the UN travel restrictions on those regime figures that have engaged in proliferation activities. The UN arms embargo will be the first provision of the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, to expire. Our letters, again, signed by the overwhelming majority of the House, represents an imperative to reauthorize this provision so that Iran does not become a greater menace to the region and the government does not divert funds urgently needed by the people to arms acquisitions and international adventures. Iran must be sanctioned, that is to say, the Iranian government must be sanctioned for its egregious violation of human rights, including infringing on free speech. Last May, I sent a letter to the president demanding he enforce the sanctions against individual companies that export censorship and privacy violating technologies to Iran. Those sanctions are a part of a law that I helped pass back in the wake of the 2009 protests. Unfortunately, that provision has not been enforced. The provision I speak of is Section 106 of the Comprehensive Iran Sanctions Accountability and Divestment Act, which provides for sanctions against companies that export censorship technologies to Iran. I've also led congressional efforts to protect the Iranian opposition members who are outside Iran. In 2018, I led a letter to the Albanian Prime Minister urging that Iranian dissidents living in Albania be protected. Earlier this summer, there were reports that 2 Iranians were arrested by Albanian authorities. The Prime Minister must ensure that Iran is not trying to silence its critics living in Albania through trumped up evidence and trumped up charges. The Iranian regime cannot black out the internet hoping to quell the legitimate protests of the people of Iran and cover up its horrific actions against its own citizens. We must continue to advocate for an Iran that is non-nuclear, democratic, secular, free, and if those conditions are achieved, prosperous and part of the community of nations. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. I thank you for putting in the time and the effort, along with so many of us, in working for a peaceful, prosperous, and non-nuclear Iran. Thank you for letting me participate, even though I have to do so with more primitive technology, and thank you for your efforts.
Congressman Sherman, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate you joining us today. And again, we apologize for the confusion and the delay. And we just want to thank you on behalf of all the members in California who appreciate everything you have done for our committee and echoing the voice of the Iranian people who are struggling for a free Iran. We thank you and have a wonderful day.
As the second ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I think it's my duty to speak out for a democratic Iran that respects human rights. And I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congress Chairman. I would echo what Shekufah just said. Obviously, you have been a very outspoken voice for the non-nuclear secular Republic of Iran. In fact, I remember your speech at the March 8th of 2019 rally, where you spoke of Mrs. Mariam Rajavi's 10-point plan and how she envisions a free Iran. So your voice is heard by the people of Iran today. You have echoed a sentiment of US Congress with the resolution that you have led with Congressman McClintock. Thank you for all your hard work and all your support, sir. Thank you. At this point, I want to offer my sincere apologies to Congressman Gooden and Congressman Gosar for being so gracious to accommodate our bit of out of schedule connectivity issues that we had with Congressman Sherman. We really appreciate your patience. We will resume with Congressman Gooden. Please go ahead. Go ahead, Congressman.
Hi, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and for your support. I especially want to thank the support from across the U.S. That is going back to Iran and encouraging people to continue your struggle and your fight. Thank you, Madam Rajavi, for your support. I had the honor of meeting her last year in Albania, and so many of you watching today were in Albania with me last year. It was a great visit. It meant a lot to me, and I wanted to tell you that support is growing here in the United States for your cause. I'm a co-sponsor of U.S. House Resolution 374, condemning Iranian state-sponsored terrorism and expressing support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. And momentum is building here in the United States for your cause. When I talk to my colleagues, they're support than ever for what it is that you're pushing for. And the 10-point plan that this resolution supports calls for the universal right to vote, free elections, a market economy. It advocates for gender, religious, and ethnic equality, a foreign policy based on peaceful coexistence, and a non-nuclear Iran. I, among 220 members of Congress from 41 states and over 20 committees, call on our government to condemn past and present Iranian state-sponsored terrorist attacks against the U.S. and its officials, as well as Iranian dissidents, including the Iranian regime's terror plot against the Paris gathering in 2018. I stand with the people of Iran who are continuing to hold legitimate and peaceful protests against an oppressive and corrupt regime, and I recognize and encourage my colleagues and government to recognize the rights of the Iranian people in their struggle to establish a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. Since my days in Albania a year ago, so much has happened on the ground there in Iran. We've made so much progress, and that's because of your support and your continuing fight. And I urge you to stick together, keep the pressure on, and continue fighting. And I believe this time next summer, and hopefully sooner, we'll be meeting together in a free Iran. Thank you so much. God bless you, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Gooden. And yes, indeed, we will hold you to that promise to be celebrating in a free Iran next summer. Thank you very much. So at this point, again, it's my great pleasure to introduce Congressman Paul Gosar from Arizona. Congressman Gosar has been among the first 39 co-sponsors of the resolution that we've gathered here for. Congressman Gosar, I will turn it over to the control room to start with a short video clip, and then we will unmute you for your remarks. All right, Congressman Gosar, we have you now. Let's make sure we are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me address you in your virtual briefing. It's important that our nation and your groups meet all the time, because you never know when freedom and opportunity knock at the door. Many of you know that there are many Iranian Americans located now in Arizona in the search for seeking the promises of political and religious freedom guaranteed under our Constitution. It's been a great honor to meet so many of you and to hear your stories The strength of the Iranian American community in Arizona and across the nation is an inspiration and speaks to the strength of our Iranian brothers and sisters. The faults in the oppressive Ayatollah Khomeini have been even further exposed to the country's unfortunate mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic at the expense of its people. Its increasingly aggressive posture against the US and the region, and its continued association and alignment with worldly authoritarian regimes in Russia and Venezuela and more. Compound that with the further suppression of the reform and the recent inauguration of a new parliament, which undermines moderate voices and led to the lowest voter turnout since 1979. I was proud to co-sponsor H.Res.374, which condemned the Iranian regime's sponsorship of terrorism and expresses support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic and secular Iran. But because of the hardline structure that exists under the Ayatollah, it does not benefit the prosperity or security of the Iranian people. I'm honored to work with the Iranian community in America, which is dedicated to the pursuit of the democratic reform, pushing the US government and its allies to continually search for a solution to bring peace and freedom to the Iranian people. The US has a proud history of being a place where those people around the world facing authoritarian abuse can find refuge to form a diaspora community, which brings great benefits to Americans and allows for working a positive change for their families and friends still living in oppression. As our great Statue of Liberty proudly displays on its side, give me you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to breathe free. In America, we seek this life for Iranian American community and in those who have found their breath of freedom. It's been my great honor to work with you and to learn from you. Thank you again for inviting me to your event. I continue to maintain a strong working relationship with the Iranian American community and especially the Organization of Iranian American Communities. And I am committed to pushing for an Iran that serves its people through democratic reforms. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Gosar. And indeed, we are striving for a free Iran together. We really appreciate your continued support for the community. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to turn to Texas as we have Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has been on the forefront fighting for human rights, democracy, especially women's rights. And I have heard Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee speaking about Maryam Rajavi, Mrs. Rajavi from the National Council of Resistance of Iran, as her sister Maryam. So with that, we will turn over to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. I am here supporting you, freedom-loving people, and H.Res.374 that condemns terrorism in Iran and says to the people who want democracy, we are standing with you. We're against a regime that promotes terrorism and terrorizes its people. We want you to know that if, as you stand for freedom, you will have the support of so many of us. We thank you for your leadership. We thank you for what you're doing. We also want to say that we are standing with those who are peacefully protesting. We're standing with those who are not denying the importance of freedom. And we're against, and we stand against the promotion of terrorism by the regime in Iran. We want a promotion of democracy and freedom. We're standing with each and every one of you. And yes, as you well know, I know Sister Miriam, we love her 10-point program that talks about voting and democracy and freedom. Thank you for that leadership. I am here at Texas Southern University, a historically Black college in America that stands to empower those in the African American community, knowing their civil rights and their history, and yes, their freedom. That is what this nation stands for, the United States of America. And today we honored Dr. Thomas Franklin Freeman, a great freedom fighter who lived 100 years. I wanted to stay here after his celebration of life to be able to say to you, stand for freedom, stand for democracy. We're standing with you and we will be free together. Thank you so very much. Blessings be upon you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jackson Lee. And yes, freedom will be upon the Iranian people soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to thank my colleague, Sheikh Sharif from California, for supporting me at the beginning of this program. We really appreciate all the work that Iranian American community has done in California. Certainly your state has a very strong support on this resolution. Sheikh, thank you for all your help.
Thank you, Ramesh. It was my pleasure. And on behalf of all the Iranian Americans in California, we would like to thank our Congressman Tom McClintock and Brad Sherman for joining us today. And I also like to thank Mrs. Mariam Rajavi for her wonderful remarks and her continued leadership. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your event.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to reflect back on the messages that we've heard from members of Congress so far, the key message of the resolution is that this resolution relies on the Iranian people and their organized resistance movement by the National Council of Resistance of Iran. In fact, the resolution clearly states that whereas the Iranian people have been deprived of their fundamental freedoms, for which reason they rejected the monarchic dictatorship and are opposing the religious tyranny. With this statement, Congress clearly stands with the people of Iran in the rejection of the monarchy of the past and the religious tyranny of today. This reminds me of a slogan in the nationwide protest where people say, "Down with the despots, be it the mullah or the shah." So it is imperative for us to understand how this resolution concludes, where Congress recognizes the rights of the Iranian people and their struggle to establish a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran, just as was stated by Congressman Sherman and Congressman McClintock, Congressman Gooden, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and Congressman Paul Gosar. Also, this resolution shows how the Iranian opposition leader, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, and it specifically calls out her 10-point plan for the future of Iran, which it reads, calls for universal right to vote, free elections and market economy, and advocates gender, religious, and ethnic equality, a foreign policy that is on peaceful coexistence and a non-nuclear Iran. This is what the Iranian people want. So at this point, we are getting a question from the media asking about Secretary Pompeo's quote from recently where he said the United States policy at getting good outcomes for the Iranian people. What is our view on that statement? And that is absolutely correct. The US is currently with the maximum pressure looking to get good outcomes for the Iranian people. And this current resolution complements what the administration is trying to do to get the outcome that the Iranian people deserve and the change that they deserve by bringing the platform that was presented by Mrs. Mariam Rajavi on the 10-point plans that was indicated in the resolution. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues to give us a view of our participants from all over the United States. I'm being told that we have more than 1,000 members of our community members who have been active on this issue of the bipartisan resolution by contacting their members of Congress. Hello, Texas. Hello, California. I understand your state had one of the highest number of members who have joined signed on to the resolution as a sponsor. Hello, Georgia. I see Georgia. I understand that your state almost had all of your members signing on to the resolution. It's my understanding that we have key representatives, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, Republican Conference Chair, who's also a co-sponsor of this resolution, and Congressman Gary Palmer, Republican Policy Committee Chair, joining the 220 members of Congress. So at this point, I am moving on to the next member of Congress who will be joining us from South Carolina, Congressman Joe Wilson from South Carolina.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends of the people of Iran, I am Joe Wilson. I'm a member of Congress from the state of South Carolina, and I'm grateful to have this invitation to participate in this virtual Iranian American conference. I am so appreciative of the Iranian American community of South Carolina, very successful citizens and persons that reflect so well on the tremendous culture of Iran. I have so much respect and appreciation for the freedom-loving Iranian people and their rich, ancient culture and heritage. The Persian culture inspired a vibrant and valued civilization that has been tragically hijacked by the corrupt and tyrannical mullahs in Tehran. It's gruesome to watch as the regime spreads and sends billions of dollars abroad to fund wars in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq, and elsewhere. Iranian Americans and other Iranians suffer at home. Even during the coronavirus pandemic, the regime does not cease its support for terrorism around the world at the expense of the people of Iran. But there's good news. The people of Iran have not been hoodwinked. You know well this regime, what they're up to. You have broadcast and been so successful in indicating what the cost of freedom is. You have sacrificed the family members, loved ones, and friends to advocate for rights and peace and for liberty for the people of Iran. I am here today to tell you, the Iranian people, that we in Congress will never cease extending to support you in your fight for democracy and freedom. The Iranian American community is an inspiration to us and an inspiration to support you. As the chairman of the Foreign Affairs and National Security Task Force of the Republican Study Committee, I have just released a report calling for the strongest ever package of sanctions against the Iranian regime. This will include mandatory snapback sanctions, an indefinite arms embargo, and as well targeted sanctions on Iran's petrochemical, automotive, and construction sectors. We'll also continue to go after Iran's proxies around the world and push for designation of Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and in Yemen. But most importantly, this report calls to support the democratic aspirations of the extraordinary people of Iran. It is our hope that one day soon, we will all be marching hand in hand together for a free, democratic Iran. Thank you again for having me here today. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and God bless the people of Iran. People of Iran. People of Iran.
Thank you very much, Congressman Wilson. And yes, indeed, one day soon we will be marching in a free Iran. At this point, it's my great pleasure to go back to California and introduce Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren from California.
I want to thank the Iranian American community of Northern California for their advocacy against Iranian state-sponsored terrorism and their support for the Iranian people and their desire for a democratic, secular, non-nuclear Republic of Iran. You know, it's important that you are supporting H.Res.374, which I'm proud to co-sponsor. This takes a stand. It's been referred to the Foreign Affairs Committee, although I'm not a member of the committee. I know that I would vote in favor of this resolution if it is brought up for a vote. It takes a stand against the Iranian promotion of terrorist activity across the Middle East, including in Syria and Iraq and Lebanon. It's important that we stand up for peace and for the possibility of democracy in Iran. So thank you to all for your tremendous work on this bill and in so many.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Lofgren. I really appreciate your support for a non-nuclear secular Iran. It's my great pleasure to come back to the East Coast and introduce our next member of Congress, Congressman Lee Zeldin from New York.
I stand shoulder to shoulder with the millions of Iranians who have courageously taken to the streets in favor of freedom. You're fed up with Iran's dictatorial regime's brutal domestic tactics, dangerous foreign policy, and non-existent economic progress. The regime has killed hundreds and hundreds of protesters since mid-November. They cut the internet to try to hide the horrors taking place from the rest of the world. Instead of caring for its own people, the Iranian regime has dedicated itself to maintaining its title as the world's largest state sponsor of terror, seeking to appease the domestic hardliners that keep them in power. The US supports your inherent right and noble quest for a better future and a free, peaceful nation.
Thank you so much, Congressman Zeldin from New York. We really appreciate your remarks. And indeed, Iranian regime continues to be the most active state sponsor of terrorism in the world. So we are going to Illinois right now to hear from Congressman Danny Davis from Illinois.
Hello, this is Congressman Danny Davis, and I want to say thank you to all Iranian American citizens and others who have gathered today in this virtual conference. Earlier this month, the Iranian regime arrested and reportedly tortured 2 award-winning student scientists, accusing them of working with the Iranian resistance movement. Even in the middle of a resurgence in COVID-19 cases and deaths in Iran, the Ayatollahs continue to prioritize oppression over the health of their people. The Iranian people want to own and can surely deliver Iran from the current abyss. It is our collective duty to help them achieve this. But I want you to understand that no foreign military involvement is needed, nor wanted, nor desired, nor is necessary. That is why I applaud all of you for convening this online gathering to let the world know that the US Congress and that a majority of those in Congress condemn Iranian regime's terrorism, particularly the one in 2018. I think H.Res.374 has successfully focused much needed attention on Iranian resistance. The 10-point plan for a free Iran and on Iranian's regime's human rights violations, as well as the regime's misuse of diplomatic privileges. I thank you for your activism, for your involvement, your engagement, and your participation, and want you to know that a majority of the members of the United States Congress support your efforts, and I thank you very much.
Congressman Danny Davis, thank you so much. You really do bring up an excellent point about how the Iranian regime continues to arrest the best and the brightest, like Ali Younisi, and accusing them of affiliating with the main opposition group. And of course, you know, your point around the 10-point plan with Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, that is the future of Iran. And we are so grateful that the US Congress, as you said, stands with the people of Iran and echoes the support for the 10-point plan by Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. At this point, I'd like to actually go back to the community members that are on the call, on the virtual conference with us. We thank you for all your hard work to get us to where we are today, with the majority of the House supporting the House Resolution 374. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce our next member of the House, Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee. Let's go to Tennessee to hear from Congressman Tim Burchett.
Hello, I'm Congressman Tim Burchett from the 2nd Congressional District, and I stand in full support of the free folks that have had to leave Iran, and I will in no shape, form, or fashion support the regime that is in power now. I know a little bit about that regime because I have several friends that live here in the Knoxville community that I grew up with, went to high school with, that their families had to leave that oppressive nation. I stand in support of those free folks that had to leave, and I stand in support of you. So thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to be your congressman.
Thank you so much, Congressman Burchett. And indeed, the Iranian American community does have deep roots here in the United States, all the way from your experience in high school. So our next member of Congress, we're going to back to Texas to hear from Congressman Louis Gourmet from Texas.
Hi, I'm U.S. Congressman Louis Gohmert, and I just wanted to address you today to say we are so proud of your efforts to be free and have a chance to stay free, which you cannot do as long as you have the suppressive, oppressive, totalitarian regime that you currently have. I know your souls yearn to be free, and you yearn to have the right to choose your own leaders and to use that right, to choose your own leaders, to self-govern, and to be free from oppression because of religious beliefs or because of gender, those kind of things. So please don't give up hope. You have so many of us who support what you're doing. I have been in your area and have encouraged personally people, don't give up hope. We applaud you. We're grateful for your courage. We're grateful for that yearning within you that wants to be free. You should be free, and we support your efforts at achieving that goal. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Gourmet. Indeed, we will never give up hope. At this point, I'd like to go back to California to hear from Congressman Raul Ruiz from California.
Thank you everyone for being here today and participating in this virtual conference. My name is Congressman Raul Ruiz, and I am an emergency medicine physician, and I represent California's 36th Congressional District. I am proud of the growing Iranian American community in my district, and it is an honor to be with all of you today. It is important that the people of Iran know that America and all peace-loving people stand with them in their pursuit of liberty, democracy, and a peaceful Iran. That is why I am a strong supporter of House Resolution 374 to promote a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. This resolution condemns past and present Iranian state-sponsored terrorist attacks against the United States citizens and officials, as well as Iranian dissidents, and it says that we stand with the people of Iran who are continuing to hold legitimate and peaceful protests against an oppressive and corrupt regime. The Iranian people have spoken, and the United States hears you and stands with you in solidarity. And we will continue to support you in the fight for your fundamental rights, freedoms, and the democratic values that we all hold so dear. I applaud you for convening this online gathering to let the world know that the United States Congress condemns Iran's malignant behavior in the region and supports the people's right for freedom and liberty. To the Iranian people seeking freedom, democracy, and human rights, I stand with you, the United States Congress stands with you, and the American people stand with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Ruiz. And indeed, standing with the Iranian people is the message of this resolution, with specific measures and speaking to the 10-point plan of Mrs. Maryam Rajavi for a future Iran. We really appreciate your support. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the united voice of the House of Representatives, really from both Democrats and Republicans, speaks to the voice of the Iranian people who are yearning to change the regime in power. Voice of the Iranian people that are desiring freedom to choose who the leaders are going to be. And those measures are actually reflected in Mrs. Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan. At this point, we are going back to Texas to hear from Congressman Dan Crenshaw from Texas. Let's hear from Congressman Crenshaw.
Hi, I'm Congressman Dan Crenshaw from Houston, Texas. I'm joining you today because freedom and human rights matter. Your freedom and your human rights matter. In 2009, we saw the Green Movement take to the streets and demand reform to the corrupt system in Iran. Sadly, we did nothing to support them, and we watched as the IRGC waged a brutal crackdown. In 2015, our government legitimized and trusted the Ayatollah and his abusive regime with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the Iran nuclear deal. The former administration believed the sanctions relief and unfreezing overseas assets would go to the Iranian people and improve their quality of life. Well, they were wrong. Instead, the Ayatollah and the IRGC Quds Force sent that money to Hezbollah, Yemen, and Syria, and then sent Iran's sons and daughters to protect Bashar al-Assad. Fortunately, things have changed. We recognize the brutality of the Ayatollah and his regime, and instead of staying silent and hoping things get better, we proudly and openly stand with the brave Iranian people who are standing up and demanding to be recognized, who are demanding their God-given freedom and respect for their human rights. We support you not just because we oppose the Ayatollah, but because many of us know you, the Iranian people. As a Houstonian, I'm proud to say that our city has approximately 70,000 residents of Iranian descent. They're business owners, doctors, professors, even an astronaut, and the captain of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, many of whom I have come to know personally. I know we share so much culturally and in our values, and I know the potential of the Persian people when they're not oppressed, but allowed to thrive. I want that for you, and I want that for your children. The Iranian people have a long and great history that has been trampled on for 40 years by corrupt zealots who care more about terror than providing for the Iranian people. And that's why I was proud to join House Resolution 374 and condemn the Iranian regime's prioritizing of terror over the Iranian people, whose desire for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Iran should be recognized. Because of your strength, your bravery, and your persistence, I believe the days of the Ayatollah and his regime are numbered. So we stand with you in your struggle for a free Iran.
Indeed, the days of the Ayatollahs are numbered because of the ongoing protests inside Iran, as the people of Iran are shouting, down with the dictators, down with Khamenei, and down with Rouhani. Thank you so much, Congressman Crenshaw. We are now going to go to Nebraska to hear from Congressman Don Bacon from Nebraska. Do we have Congressman Don Bacon?
I'm Don Bacon, a congressman out of the 2nd District of Nebraska. And before that, I was a 30-year Air Force guy, and I retired in 2014, but I had 16 assignments, 4 deployments to the Middle East, and I love serving our country. Today, I speak in support of Iranian Americans, but also the Iranians living in Iran who desire freedom. The folks in Iran are being abused by their government. And we know the government is suppressing its own people, suppressing the rights and the liberties of its own people. But beyond that, it's also exporting terror throughout the Middle East and throughout the world. It is the world's largest exporter of terror. So I really want to communicate today is we oppose the regime, the government of Iran, but we stand with the people. And we want the people to regain their rights, their freedoms, and their prosperity that Iran long had until the Ayatollahs and the mullahs destroyed that prosperity and their economy. I want you to know that I support House Resolution 374, which condemns the terrorism of Iran and condemns the behavior of the regime and its suppressing of the people. We want the people to know that we support we want the people to know that we support them. We support you. So with that, I just want to know that I want people to know that America stands by the freedom-loving people of Iran, and we want the Iranian government to change and to give their freedoms back to the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Bacon. And absolutely, the Iranian people want peace, prosperity, and freedom. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have many, many more members of Congress that we have standing by to connect with us. And I think I do have one question from the media that I have to address as we move on to our other members of Congress. And the question is, how many states were participating in the co-sponsorship of this resolution? At this point, we have 221 members of Congress from 41 states, and it has 113 committee ranking members and subcommittee members, and as well as all 27 congressional committees that have been represented and sponsoring this resolution. So hopefully that answers the question that came from the media. I'm going to move on to go to the next member of Congress. Right now, we're going to Arizona to hear from Congresswoman Debbie Lesko from Arizona.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Debbie Lesko from the great state of Arizona, and I want to thank you for having me join this exciting event. I was a proud original co-sponsor of House Resolution 374 because I believe that the bad actors in Iran need to be stopped. Also, I'm part of the Republican Study Committee, which just released a plan that included more sanctions against the bad actors in Iran. Thank you for everything you do, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Lesko from Arizona. Now we're going to go to Minnesota to hear from Representative Angie Craig from Minnesota.
Hello, Representative Angie Craig from Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District here. It's my honor to co-sponsor House Resolution 374, condemning Iranian state-sponsored terrorist attacks and supporting the people of Iran, who have long engaged in peaceful protest against the regime. The Iranian people and Americans both stand for freedom, democracy, pluralism, gender equality, free and fair elections, and a market economy. We both have a history of disavowing any repression and terrorism by the Iranian regime on the people of Iran. It's my honor to support you, and I will continue to support your work to have a representative government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Craig. We really appreciate your continued support. Next, we're going to Arkansas to hear from Congressman Bruce Westerman. Congressman Westerman.
Greetings from Washington, D.C. My name is Bruce Westerman, and I represent Arkansas's 4th Congressional District. It's an honor for me to stand beside those in Iran who are fighting against the injustice, against the regime there, who are protesting peacefully. And it was my honor to be a co-sponsor of H.Res.374. Please know that my support is with you and the support of many more Americans as you fight for those things that we hold so dear here. As our founders said, we believe that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we know that what you're fighting for in your home country is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You deserve that, and we stand with you and wish you Godspeed.
Thank you so much, Congressman Westerman. We really appreciate your remarks. At this point, I'm going to ask my colleagues to again give us a view of all the participants that we have from West Coast all the way to the East Coast, the hard work of the members of the Iranian American community that has brought us to this event. And obviously we hear from every single member of Congress appreciating their efforts for the democracy and human rights in Iran. It is truly a moment of reflection by the Iranian American communities and their hard work for a free Iran. Thank you so much. Let me turn back to Minnesota again and
Hi, this is Tom Emmer, and I represent Minnesota's 6th Congressional District. I'm glad to be able to join you and share our support for democracy around the world, and more specifically, with the Iranian people's desire to join the United States in having a free and open society. I was proud to support H.Res.374 as a co-sponsor in the U.S. House of Representatives, which condemns Iranian state-sponsored terrorism and expresses our support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic, non-nuclear Republic of Iran. Many Iranians have attempted to peacefully protest in their home country. They have expressed their desire to celebrate the freedom, democracy, value of free and fair elections, and market economy of free countries, including the United States. I look forward to the day when Iran has the free and open democracy its people so desperately seek. Thank you for your hard work and commitment to achieving that goal. We will continue to support those who strive for democracy and freedom around the globe. The hope and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere are with the people of Iran. Thank you.
thank you so much, Congressman Emmer. We really appreciate your support and your wonderful remarks. Next, we're going back to California to hear from Congressman Scott Peters from California.
It's great to be with you in this virtual conference today in solidarity with the people of Iran. I'm Congressman Scott Peters from San Diego, California. Today, we're recognizing a milestone congressional measure, House Resolution 374. The resolution condemns Iranian state-sponsored terrorism and supports the Iranian people's desire for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. House Resolution 374 highlights the Iranian people's need for an open and free society backed by a fair system of government without the threat of violence or terror. And it also seeks to hold Iran accountable for its growing ballistic missile program, which not only threatens Iran's own democracy, but that of the United States and its allies around the globe. Since first coming to Congress in 2013, I've pushed for a safe end to Iran's nuclear and ballistic weapons program. I've also sent letters and co-sponsored resolutions to both President Obama and President Trump, urging greater international cooperation to achieve this goal. Last month, I signed on to a letter to renew the expiring United Nations arms embargo against Iran and UN travel restrictions on those Iranian individuals involved with dangerous proliferation activities. And just last week, I co-sponsored another resolution to recognize the contributions of Iranian Americans in government, military, and other facets of American society. It also upholds the civil liberties and rights of Iranian Americans by condemning bigotry, violence, and discrimination. And indeed, isn't the Iranian American community such a critical contributing part of our community here in San Diego, California? Looking ahead, I'll continue to use my platform to push for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Iran, and I thank the California Society for Democracy in Iran and the Organization of Iranian American Communities for bringing light to this cause and for giving me an opportunity to speak. Thank you and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Congressman Peters. And as my colleague said at the beginning of the program, Iranian American communities of California are very proud to have such a strong bipartisan support from majority of their members in that state. So one key point that Congressman Peters brought up, which is important, and we also have a similar question from the media that has come in, is about the significance of this resolution, because there has been a number of resolutions that has been introduced in the House and has gotten a lot of support, including the arms embargo on the Iranian regime that's about to expire in October, which had 92% of the members of Congress who supported that. And this resolution clearly stands on a very strong platform on every previous resolution against the Iranian regime, and really takes it to the next level of supporting the Iranian people, recognizing Iran's terrorist activities and the malign activities that has to stop, and how the terrorist activities are targeting Iran's main opposition group, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, by mentioning the event in Paris, by mentioning the events in Washington, D.C. and Albania. So this resolution takes it one step further to say we not only stand with the Iranian people, we also stand with the future of Iran that's reflected with Mrs. Maryam Rajabi's 10-point, the leader of the Iranian opposition. So with that, I'm going to go to our next speaker, member of the House, Congressman David Schweikert from Arizona. Let's go to Arizona.
My name is David Schweikert, and I'm blessed to represent the Phoenix-Scottsdale area in the U.S. Congress. June is a unique month for the Iranian people, and for my Persian community here in the Phoenix-Scottsdale area, the expressions of concern of what continues to happen in Iran. I am one of the co-sponsors of resolutions to try to push for a pluralistic democracy. And hopefully one day it's something we will see. But do understand, there's many of us here in Congress who stand with the Iranian people, stand with our Persian Americans. We're here, let's keep pushing hard, and hopefully one day we will see something good come out of it.
Thank you so much, Congressman Schweikert, and we really appreciate your support. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually receiving a lot of other written statements by other members of Congress who could not join us today. We have a statement by Congresswoman Judy Chu from California, also a statement by Congressman Doug Collins from Georgia, 9th District of Georgia. He's a member of Judiciary Committee. We have a statement from Congresswoman Linda Sanchez, also from California, and Congresswoman Sanchez has spoken at various events, including the international gathering of the Iranian diaspora in Paris, meeting with Mrs. Maryam Rajabi. We also have a message. Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies. I was just announcing that we have many letters from members of Congress that we will not have time to cover during our events today. Just to go through some of them. We have a letter from Congressman Collins from Georgia, 9th District of Georgia, judiciary member. We have a letter from a message from Congresswoman Judy Chu from California for our event today. We also have a message from Congresswoman Linda Sanchez, who joined us in Paris event and meeting with Mrs. Mariam Rajavi in 2018, which is the largest gathering of the Iranian diaspora. And we also have a message from Congressman Ron Wright from Texas, and also a message from Congressman Anthony Gonzalez. I'm sorry we can't get to all of the messages that was sent to us, but we will certainly make them available post-event. So at this point, let me move to Alabama. Let's hear from Congressman Robert Arnold from Alabama.
To the Iranian community in America and in particular in Alabama, I want to extend my gratitude for all the work that you've done. And I want to let you know that we stand with you. We all know that the regime in Tehran has no regard for the will of the Iranian people. They blatantly disregard the beliefs and the wants of their own citizens and constantly put the peace and stability of the world at risk. That is why I signed on a letter recently to the Secretary of State urging him to extend the arms embargo with Tehran. And that's why I co-sponsored a resolution condemning Tehran's state-sponsored terrorism. I know that the Iranian people want to live in a democratic country that is free from nuclear weapons. And I hope one day that is the reality. I believe that we can inch closer to that reality with the help of Iranian American communities like yourself. So again, thank you for your work. We look forward to working with you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Congressman Aderholt. We really appreciate your support. Let's go back to South Carolina and hear from Congressman William Timmons from South Carolina.
This is Congressman William Timmons representing the 4th District of South Carolina. I am pleased to join you today from Greenville to speak directly with the Iranian community in support of a free Iran. Like many of my colleagues, I stand with the people of Iran. I have co-sponsored legislation to condemn Iranian state-sponsored terrorism and express my support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic society. Over the last 3 years, the United States has repeatedly expressed support for the people of Iran by imposing much-needed economic sanctions on the dictators ruling Iran. We will continue to support the people of Iran's democratic aspirations. Thank you again for inviting me to speak with you and with the people of Iran. Our nations share so many of the same values, and we will not tolerate Iran's corrupt and oppressive regime. The American people are with you.
Thank you so much. At this point, I'm told by the control room that we have a message from Congressman Ken Calvert from California. Let's go back to California to hear from Congressman Ken Calvert.
The people of Iran have the right to shape their country's path forward. Once free of the oppression of the Iranian regime, there's nothing stopping them from a peaceful and prosperous future.
Thank you so much, Congressman Calvert. We really appreciate your message. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very proud to announce that not only the Iranian American communities across the US campaigned for this House resolution, but also many religious leaders have joined us on this campaign. We now have a message from religious leaders from different faiths. I have Rabbi Joseph Potsunik, Executive Vice President of the New York Board of Rabbis, Bishop Robert Stearns, Founder and Executive Director of Eagle's Wings, Clarence, New York, And we have Imam Dr. Tahir Hukaj, Imam of Albanian Islamic Cultural Center in New York. Let's listen to their message for our event.
I want to say thank you to all of you for allowing me to share this special moment with you. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik. Know that you who fight for freedom are not fighting alone. We, a free people, stand with you. It is said that those who turn their backs never see tears. We will never turn our backs on you. We stand with you. We who value democracy want you to have democracy. We who value liberty want you to have liberty. And we who enjoy free speech want you to enjoy free speech. Together with your friends in this country, we sent letters, we made phone calls to make sure that members of the House of Representatives of the United States Congress would support Resolution 374, and we were successful. It is said that some people in this world only dream to fight. I know for you, you fight for a dream of decency and dignity for all of your people.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Imam Tahir Hukaj, Imam of the Albanian community here in New York City. First, I would like to express my support to the Iranian people in their struggle to get their freedom and democracy and rule of law against dictatorship that has hijacked the religion in order to suppress the Iranian people since 1979. The worst dictatorship is the dictatorship ruled or used against the people in the name of God. As a Muslim, as a human being, I am against dictatorship, whatever it is, and particularly in this great nation in Iran that has been always the cradle of civilizations for years and even centuries. I stand with Iranian people and I support them in their struggle to get their country back, to get their freedom, democracy, and rule of law.
My name is Bishop Robert Stearns, and I'm honored to address you today. Every year, hundreds of Iranian American citizens and their supporters, including prominent American officials, have been traveling to Paris, France, to attend a grand gathering that attracts about 100,000 supporters every year. I have been privileged to attend that event. In recent years, including the 2018 gathering, over 600 parliamentarians from 70 nations and every continent on earth have gathered to hear Mrs. Maryam Rajavi and to show their support, to show our support for the Iranian opposition leader's 10-point Jeffersonian plan, which calls for a wonderful future for Iran and the Iranian people. This plan calls for the universal right to vote, for free elections, for a market economy, and advocates for gender, religious, and ethnic equality, and a foreign policy based on peaceful coexistence and a non-nuclear Iran. On May 22nd, the Department of State said, since coming to power in 1979, the Iranian regime has been implicated in assassinations, terrorist plots, and terrorist attacks in more than 40 countries. Senior Iranian officials have declared that Iran follows and constantly surveils Iranian dissidents, in these other countries to crack down on them and to strike decisive blows.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the support that we get from all of the religious communities across the US. And ladies and gentlemen, Bishop Stearns talked about the 2018 event in Paris, our annual Diaspora Paris in Paris. And I stand corrected because I mentioned Congressman Linda Sanchez was at the event in Paris. It was actually Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. But with that, let me just read an excerpt from Congresswoman Sanchez's message to our event today that says, during this difficult time as we fight a global pandemic, we cannot stay shy away from protecting human rights both in the US and around the world. As I work with my colleagues to address the ongoing threat of COVID-19, I am proud to stand with a bipartisan majority in the US Congress in support of the Iranian people. And with that, I'd like to actually ask my colleagues to give us the view of our participant today. We thank you so much for all your hard work. We thank you for all that you've done for the H.Res.374 to get us into the majority. It is your hard work that's brought us here today. As we conclude our program today, let me thank all of the members of Congress who joined us for this event. Let me also remind you to follow us on our website, www.oiac.org. We actually have a map of all of the members who have signed on to the H.Res.374 on the website, and you could navigate the map to get additional details about all of the states that we have support from on this resolution. I know there was a question on the media. I invite you to visit our website. I also invite all of you to follow us on social media, and our handle is @IAC.org. And with that, I'm sorry we did not get to all of the states. We did not have an additional time to bring you more messages from members of Congress. But we thank you for joining us today as we conclude our program. Let's keep up a great fight for a free Iran, everyone. Thank you so much.